Hey, this is Science and Secularism, Episode 5. What is this channel all about anyways? Well, it's about the SSP, the secular science perspective. Secular meaning non-religious. We reject any kind of organized religion and reject mythological explanations. And all the secularists I know, we're pretty spiritual. But we're in awe of nature, existence, the cosmos, knowledge in general, and not some, supposedly transcendent mythical realm full of gods and angels and demons and all that nonsense that none of which ever showed up anyways. We're spiritual and awestruck about the information of how the world really works, and not some ancient bullshit about how some god that never existed had a bug up his ass one day and swished around in the waters of the deep and on the cosmic toilet, and somehow the earth popped out of it, and so did humans, and you get the idea. There's dozens of those kind of myths from cultures 2,000-3,000 years ago. Some of us are atheists, some of us are agnostics, some of us are deists. But non-belief in religion is what unites all of us. We are all proudly unbelieving scum or nuns, people that have identify as no religious affiliation, and we're secular about all the world's religions. The science part, science is hard-won empirical and theoretical knowledge that is species-wide. Religion is peculiar to any given culture, but all science knowledge works for the whole species. It works for all humans, all cultures. Like Sam Harris says, we all generate our electricity the same way, regardless of religion or culture, right? It is a method, and I'll have a whole episode on the scientific method later, despite some philosophers claiming that there isn't one or it can't work, while today, close to 10 million scientists are working hard out there at about every problem you can think of, and they're doing science like never before. We'll talk about that later. So science part, you got to do the work, you got to collect the data, you got to run the stats, you got to run the experiments and do the observations. Just a cursory review of phenomena and some kind of grand theorizing like religionists, philosophers, Freudians have done in the past, that just doesn't cut it anymore. Now, by studying humans and human nature, we have learned we are one species, and we could be one tribe without the divisive, nationalistic, political, or religious ideologies out there. One of the things, the reason I use the artist's rendition of the Apollo 8 picture from the moon of Earth is that astronauts noticed right away there's no map, country boundaries on the outer space globe, and this tiny blue dot hanging out in the middle of space, they really gain a cosmic perspective, a human perspective, not a God's eye view, but a very human one, and we'll talk about that in great detail later too. The SSP is a perspective that is rational, optimistic. It's an enlightened approach to life. It's based in our phenomenal modern progress in science, technology, social advances, recognizing human flourishing and our abilities to problem solve. Let's do more of it is the approach, and drop religious roadblocks to scientific and social progress. The SSP is not a religion, or not just a worldview or a philosophy. It is a rational, empathetic, problem-solving perspective that makes perfect sense given the progress we have already made in the last couple hundred years especially. I will have later episodes on our phenomenal progress over the last couple hundred years of science. There's so much to talk about there. So another point of the SSP is it's the opposite view of the doom and gloom pessimism and the obsession with sin and devil-fearing of backwards-looking religions. Religions look back to 1,000, 2,000-year-old, sometimes 3,000-year-old mythologies, and they're mostly doom and gloom and negative. Always waiting for the end of the world and the apocalypse, and full of demons and cabals of deities out to, get us, out to burn us. And they're obsessed with doing useless rituals, worshiping non-existent gods. Religions are all based on these 2,000 to 3,000-year-old myths, silly, childish, primitive explanations of how the world worked or how they thought it would work. They're all pre-scientific explanations, and they're perpetuated only through child indoctrination, which I think is child abuse, and yes, we'll have an episode on that at some point. And they bring sexual repression, homophobia, divisiveness, misogyny, and science denial along with them. That's what the bumper sticker up there is doing. Misogyny, homophobia, and science denial all disappear when religion does. The SSP leads to humanism. It's pretty hard to adopt a secular science perspective and not wind up a humanist, okay? That human rights and human flourishing are above all other ideologies. And science shows us we are one species, and we could be one tribe, okay? Again, rejection of political and religious ideologies and emphasizing our normal human empathy. The SSP is the antidote to and replacement for the obsolescent, obstructing arrogance of religious thought. Right now, people like me, secular humanists, scientific secularists, however you want to call it, we represent the 29% of Americans who have no religious affiliation, the nones. If you talk to any of them that have rejected religion, they almost automatically start talking about human rights and human flourishing. There's a secular trend rise of the nones going on right now. 35 to 40% of the younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, identify as no religious affiliation. In comparison, Catholics in the U.S. are 21%, evangelical Christians 25%, other Protestant 15%, right? So Christians do still make up over 60% of the overall population, okay? But the nones with Generation Z are almost up to 40%. It's phenomenal. So we are all humanists at heart, and when you get rid of the other ideologies, it's really easy to embrace humanism. Generation Z has no problem with LGBTQI issues. Their normal human empathy isn't blocked by old, outdated, cruel religious ideas, right? The sooner we dump religious thought, which is not only arrogant, where's the book? That's why I call it that. And the book I'm working on now is The Obsolescence of Religious Thought. Nobody's God's ever showed up, and all believing in this nonsense just holds us back. Secular science perspective is my term, but it's drawn on many sources. Michael Shermer started using scientific humanists in place of secular humanists, emphasizing the science part, important to all of us humanists. I draw on the rational optimism of Matt Ridley and other authors like Peter Diamandis, documenting our incredible abundance over the last couple hundred years, and of course Steven Pinker with his writings emphasizing data-driven trend approach to the human condition versus headline news. His books, Enlightenment Now and Better Angels of Our Nature, are examples of that. And the late, great Hans Rosling, also with his wonderful visualizations of human progress, really helped me put together the idea of the secular science perspective. I'll do book reports at some time on all those thinkers. There's so much to cover. There's so much good stuff out there. So there you have it. The SSP, the antidote to and the replacement for arrogant, obsolete, repressive religious thought. It's not at all a silly optimism or a Pollyanna view of the world. It's a realistic, non-religious, and equally awe-inspiring view of what we are capable of when we're not doing ideologies. Okay? We have a lot of problems to be sure, but look at the progress of the last 200 years. Let's do it and run with it. So that's the SSP. Hope you enjoyed this little chat. Got a lot more episodes coming. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please support us on Patreon if you can. Don't forget to vote, and don't forget to give blood if you can. Not at the same time, obviously. And have a great day. Adios.